She accidentally discovered a huge loophole in Walmart. All she had to do was hide in the restroom before the store closed, wait until all the employees had gone home, and then the entire store became her free apartment. Daily necessities, eating, washing up, sleeping, learning about parenting, working out on the exercise equipment, all of it was handled right there among the aisles. Just before dawn, she'd quietly put everything she'd used back in place, then hide in the restroom again, and after the store opened, blend in with the customers and slip out. Day after day, she did this without a hitch. Nawali was already 7 months pregnant. She planned to keep this up until the baby was born. She knew this wasn't right, but she had nowhere else to go. At age 5, her mother had abandoned her without a second thought for a baseball coach. Her father had long since disappeared. She'd grown up in a beat-up old trailer, scraping by with help from neighbors. Later, she fell for the wrong man and got pregnant by a deadbeat. She thought he was someone she could count on, poured everything into him, and followed him far away. But then he ditched her while she was in the restroom. When Nawali came out, the car was gone and he was gone. All that was left was her Polaroid camera. In that moment, her world collapsed. A pregnant woman, abandoned in a strange town, with no money, no education, and no one she knew. Anyone else might have fallen apart, but Nawali didn't have time to grieve. She had to stay alive first, so she found this way to survive at Walmart. After the employees left, the store became her shelter. During the day, she wandered around town, pretending to be just a passerby. That was how she got by, for now. Then one day, while resting outside the store, she met a strange nun. The woman greeted her warmly. She had mistaken Nawali for her deceased friend's daughter. She didn't give Nawali a chance to explain, and just chatted with her for a long time. Before leaving, she insisted on giving Nawali a sapling and left her phone number.
It's a buckeye tree. Brings you good luck. Here, take it. I'm in the phone book. You come and see me anytime you want.
Nawali took the young horse chestnut tree. At the time, she had no idea that this tree would actually bring her good fortune. Days passed, and Nawali spent countless nights in that store. During the day, she'd go to the park and carefully note down every item she'd used at Walmart. She made up her mind to repay it once she was able to. The days of hiding were lonely. Her only companion was that horse chestnut tree, but because she couldn't take care of it properly, its leaves began to yellow. Watching it wilt day by day, Nawali grew anxious. She went to the public library to find books on plant care. The librarian was a cold-faced man, grumpy and impatient. Nawali had never been to school, so many of the words were hard for her to read.
Nitrogen
deficiency. Keep reading.
Just as the tension was building, a loud crash came from upstairs. The man's expression shifted. He hurried upstairs. Nawali left the library. Feeling helpless, she went to see the nun, apologetically telling her she hadn't been able to care for the tree. The nun didn't scold her at all. Instead, she smiled and comforted her. Together, they planted the tree in the nun's yard, and she solemnly promised to look after it. That day, the nun made a delicious meal for her, like a mother would. Under the warm glow of the lights, the aroma of food filled the small room, and Nawali felt a faint taste of home. But night always falls, and no matter how comforting the meal, she still had to go back to that dark, empty Walmart. What Nawali didn't know was that the grumpy librarian had already spotted her hiding spot. Late one night, a sharp pain jolted Nawali awake. As soon as she stood up, she realized her water had broken. A wet patch spread across the floor. She grabbed paper towels to wipe it up, but the cramps made her legs give out, and she slid down against the shelf. In the empty store, there was no one to help her. She lay on the floor, terrified, struggling. Just as her consciousness began to fade, she vaguely saw a figure crash through the window. Hours later, Nawali woke up in a hospital, in a clean bed with bouquets of flowers beside her. The nurse happily told her she was now a local celebrity. Everyone was calling her the Walmart mom. TV crews were lined up outside, waiting to interview her. But Nawali's first reaction was fear. She was afraid the store would press charges, afraid she couldn't afford the medical bills, even more afraid the hospital would take her baby away. The nurse laughed and said Walmart wasn't pressing charges. They'd even left her $500 to help her out, and promised her a job after she recovered. Then the nurse brought over a baby and gently placed her in Nawali's arms. Looking down at that tiny face, her racing heart finally settled. She also learned from the nurse that the person who had saved her and her baby that night was none other than that grumpy librarian. He'd only suffered minor injuries. Nawali made a mental note to thank him in person when she got out. Days passed in the hospital, and Nawali grew close to the nurse caring for her, becoming friends who could talk about anything. Before long, the TV stations came calling. Nawali gave an interview, and her story spread across the country through the lens. Her life began to change. Letters poured in from all over, some with cash tucked inside, some with handmade cards from children. One woman wrote that she'd once lived in her car with her child for a year, but sadly, the baby hadn't made it. She'd sent whatever little savings she had, hoping it could help Nawali and her baby. Reading those crooked, heartfelt words, Nawali's eyes blurred with tears. These acts of kindness from strangers were like tiny lights illuminating her once dark path. But what surprised her even more was that her mother, who had disappeared for over a decade, showed up after seeing her on the news. Nawali hadn't seen her since she was 5. After all those years, all she felt was distance and strangeness. A few words in, her mother habitually lit a cigarette. Smoke filled the air, with no regard for Nawali, who had just given birth. And yet, despite everything, Nawali, who had never known a mother's love, still secretly held a sliver of hope. What surprised her more was that her mother seemed different, gentler in tone, with a hint of regret in her eyes. She said she regretted abandoning Nawali, and now wanted to give her a home.
You mean like a home?
home, apartment, whatever, till you get on your feet. I got me a little money.
Oh, I got money.
When her mother mentioned she didn't have much money, Nawali pulled out the $500 Walmart had given her and handed it over for household expenses. In that moment, a flicker of something crossed her mother's face, and she swore she'd find them a nice apartment, promising to pick them up at 9 a.m. sharp. Before leaving, she chattered on about buying baby supplies, brimming with excitement at becoming a grandmother. But the next day, the sun rose and set, and Nawali waited at the hospital entrance, baby in arms. But her mother never came. In the end, Nawali understood. She'd been fooled again. Over a decade ago, a 5-year-old girl was left behind. Over a decade later, the same person had abandoned her again. That $500 was all the money she had, and her last shred of trust. In that moment, Nawali fell into despair once more, but fate quietly reached out a helping hand. The nun saw the news on TV and drove over immediately. She wanted to help, but was afraid that offering pity outright might wound Nawali's pride, so she gently made up an excuse, saying she didn't have time to care for the horse chestnut tree in her yard.
So I thought maybe if you and the baby came and stayed with me for a while, that you could take care of it for me.
Perhaps sensing the nun's kindness, Nawali let down her guard and accepted the unexpected help. From that day on, she and her baby had a real home. Once settled, the first thing Nawali did was go to the library to find the grumpy librarian, Fernie. She thanked him sincerely. Fernie still wore his usual stern expression, but his eyes were noticeably softer. Nawali gently handed him the baby. Fernie held her awkwardly, flustered and nervous. Seeing this, Nawali picked up her camera and froze that tender moment forever. But before they could say much more, a sharp scream came from upstairs again. Fernie's face changed, and he hurried up. Nawali took the hint and left. Day by day, life improved. Walmart really did give Nawali a job, enough to support herself and her baby, and her arrival brought life and laughter to the nun and her husband's home. The once empty house now echoed with a baby's cries and the sounds of cooking. It finally felt like a real home. From then on, Nawali worked while also studying photography on the side, spending her free time at the library catching up on theory, and Fernie's gaze toward her slowly shifted from coldness to warmth. One day, hearing noise from upstairs, Nawali followed out of curiosity. She discovered that the woman who cried out was Fernie's sister. She was a severe, long-term alcoholic, mentally unstable, unable to care for herself. Fernie had given up the chance to attend a top university, to stay in this rundown town and take care of her for years. And so, Nawali and Fernie each learned the other's deepest wounds. One was a girl left behind, the other a man trapped by duty. Slowly, they became close friends who held nothing back. Before they knew it, 3 years had passed quietly. Her daughter grew up surrounded by love and care. Fernie became the most frequent presence in their home, often helping Nawali with the child, unconsciously filling the void of a father's love with his quiet companionship. Meanwhile, Nawali's photography skills blossomed during those stable years. She began taking on freelance gigs, carrying her camera through the happy moments of other people's lives, freezing their tears and smiles into timeless negatives. Every time she came back, she'd share those stories with the nun. They were becoming more and more like a real mother and daughter. The warmth that Nawali had never received from her own mother, she received from the nun instead. But sorrow often hides in the happiest moments. A sudden storm shattered their peaceful life. Nawali and her daughter took shelter in the cellar and survived. But tragically, the nun hadn't made it back in time and lost her life in the disaster. Their little house was also destroyed by the storm. Once again, Nawali found herself homeless. In the face of this heartbreak, she raised her camera and froze that moment into an eternal memory. To her surprise, the nun had made a will, leaving all her inheritance to Nawali. With that money, Nawali rebuilt the home the tornado had taken. And even more unexpectedly, the photo she'd taken of that horse chestnut tree won first place in a photography competition that year. Standing on the award stage, her gaze was calm, no longer resembling that frightened girl who once huddled among Walmart shelves. Nawali knew in her heart, without the nun's help and salvation, she wouldn't be who she was today. Her life finally settled down. Nawali's work kept getting busier, and whenever she was out, Fernie would always quietly take care of her daughter. Nawali knew full well the depth of his feelings, but she still found it hard to take that step and easily accept a new relationship. Yet every time she came home from work and saw her daughter cuddled in Fernie's arms, her heart would be stirred with deep emotion. Still, they both silently chose not to break that thin barrier, letting all their unspoken feelings drift into a soft goodnight. Until one day, Fernie's sister passed away from complications caused by years of heavy drinking. The heavy blow hit him like a storm, plunging him into a sea of grief. Looking at the tear-streaked man before her, the tightly wound string in Nawali's heart finally snapped. But as the tide of passion ebbed, the rocks of reason surfaced. When Fernie poured out his heartfelt confession, Nawali didn't know how to respond. It wasn't that she didn't love him, she just suddenly felt she didn't deserve him, especially when she learned that Fernie was ready to give up his studies and stay in this town forever for her sake. Nawali was torn. She knew he deserved a brighter future, with no obligation to care for his sister anymore. He could chase his dreams unburdened. She didn't want to hold him back, so she coldly fabricated a lie.
No, Barney, I don't love you. Not that way.
And with that she turned and walked away, leaving only a resolute back. She used this way to push Fernie away. But in the dead of night the longing and pain gnawed at her, until one day, Nawali happened to come across news about her ex-boyfriend in the newspaper. He'd had both legs crushed by a train, and the week before, someone had stolen his wheelchair. Nawali went to the hospital, standing before the man who had once abandoned her. It turned out that over the years, he'd managed to become a singer, only to crash hard after a brief rise to fame. Back at rock bottom, he finally understood. This was all his karma. Drunk, he'd crawled onto train tracks, hoping to find Nawali, and lost his legs to an oncoming train. Having faced life and death, he now wanted to tell her one thing. On the day he abandoned her at Walmart, Nawali had placed his hand on her belly and asked if he could feel the baby. He'd lied and said no.
Why?
Because we're scared and crazy. You're just mean. I mean, there's a million reasons to lie, Nobly. But sometimes you tell lies so big it changes your whole life.
Nawali's eyes turned red, not out of pity for that man, but because in him, she saw the liar she had become herself. She refused to spend her whole life in regret. Finally, Nawali made up her mind and rushed to Fernie. She drove hundreds of miles to his university, and waited on campus for a long time. At dusk, she finally saw him. Nawali mustered all her courage, and explained that she had lied to him before.
I lied for me. It wasn't true. I love you. It's just I lied because I thought you deserved something better.
Nobly, there isn't anything better than you.
In that moment, they both finally chose what their hearts truly wanted. Soon after, Nawali and Fernie got married, right in that same Walmart store. Flowers surrounded them, and she wore a beautiful white dress, sharing a joyful kiss with Fernie. Life may not go easy on you just because you've suffered enough, but it's precisely those wounds that, once crossed, reveal a view worth all the hardships along the way.